and gentlemen, I am the one and only DJ Storms. And I would like to welcome each and every single one of you back here to the channel right here on YouTube.com. As of course, you already know who I am, Mr. Controversy, and the operator of the best damn Twitter handle known to mankind. This is the Lightning Flash update for July 26th, 2019. And trust me when I tell you, we got a lot to go over today. I got a lot of news I'd like to talk about today, and I got a lot of substance concerning the weekly shows leading into WWE SummerSlam, of course NXT TakeOver Toronto, and NXT UK TakeOver Cardiff at the end of August. So, let's get into the weekly show reviews. Raw Reunion. I mean, well, what else can I say about Raw Reunion? Was it anything special? No. Did we have a few good moments here and there? Yeah, we did. I had a few good moments here and there. A few laughs here and there. But at the end of the day, show meant nothing. Show meant nothing. Show was worthless. Show was a waste of time. Cena kicked off the show. Cena, and I will give Cena credit here. I did not give a shit about Raw Reunion whatsoever, but Cena always manages to make even the most worthless things feel important. That's how good John Cena is. The Usos came out, and they called out the Doctor of Thugonomics. And, of course, Cena did a little rap saying, "You look just like your mugshots. How was it getting arrested?" Speaking of arrested, I don't want to switch gears here, but TMZ apparently reported that Jimmy Uso got arrested again. Now, I don't know what's going on with Jimmy Uso. Now, I'm just saying this before I continue with the Raw review, and then we'll get into SmackDown and all that. But Jimmy Uso, I don't know what's going on with him, but the mental health issue and the substance abuse, that shit's still real. Shit like that is still real, and I don't know what's going on with him, but he's got to get his act together. Someone has to help him. Someone's got to put him in rehab or something. I mean, this guy, how many times has this guy gotten arrested now? This guy has been arrested at least 2 or 3 times. It's going to come to a point where he's going to end up suffering something a lot worse. He could very well suffer a suspension. He could very well suffer getting fucking fired. So, I don't know what's going on with him, but he's got to get his act together. He's really got to get his act together, or else he's going to end up hurting his own career. Rikishi. He came out, he wanted to bust a move with Cena and the Usos before anything else could happen. The Revival came out with Devon Dudley. It was a fun opener, not gonna lie. It was a fun opener for what it was, but did it mean anything? No, it didn't. The majority of the show was a bunch of Legends bullshit. It didn't even help progress anything towards SummerSlam, all except for one segment, which I will talk about. And look, we got a decent match with the Usos and the Revival. I'm not gonna lie, these two teams can work. But at the end of the day, what happened? The same old, tired, formulaic WWE bullshit. The Usos beat the Revival after the Revival already beat the Usos on a pay-per-view in a tag team title match. The Usos beat the Revival in a non-title match, and now most likely they're going to get another match at the SummerSlam pay-per-view. How many times have we seen the Usos and the Revival in the last 2 months? At least 6 or 7 times in tag team form and 6-man tag form? Why do you have to recycle the same people over and over again? Get some new faces in there. And enough with the same tired bullshit concept of someone beating a champion in a non-title match just to get a title match at the pay-per-view. Drake Maverick won the 24/7 title from R-Truth. Did this 24/7. And then this was another focal point. The 24/7 title was a major focal point on this show. The 24/7 title. Out of everything, the 24/7 title was a major focal point on the show. The Godfather had made a little appearance. Obviously, it's always nice to see the Godfather. There was a segment in the back with Tori, Alicia, and Santino, and McIntyre gave us the LOL moment of the night when he walked by. He looked in disgust at these 3 individuals, and he said, "Legends." Shook his head and walked away. The LOL moment of the night goes to Mr. Drew McIntyre. I originally thought that we were going to get some 50-50 booking bullshit, but apparently they just had McIntyre go out there and attack Cedric Alexander before the match even began, and that was pretty much that. The Boogeyman scared Drake Maverick, and Pat Patterson came out of nowhere to win the 24/7 title. Pat Patterson is a champion in 2019. Pat Patterson is a champion in 2019. Think about that for a minute. They brought back all these legends to be 24/7 title champions for a minimum of 30 seconds. At most, 30 minutes. This was another issue with it. You bring back Pat Patterson only to tell you, without actually telling you, that the 24/7 title is a worthless piece of garbage. And it gets even worse with the 24/7 title later on. The Viking Raiders defeated Ryder and Hawkins in about 4 minutes. You know, can I just say something here? Let me just say something here. The Viking Raiders, War Raiders, War Machine, Viking Experience, the War Rating Viking Experience Viking Experience Machine, whatever the fuck you want to call them. These guys have been on the main roster since April. By SummerSlam, it would be around 5 months. These guys have not been pinned. They haven't been submitted. They have not been touched. They have been booked as unstoppable monsters. They've been undefeated since April. Why aren't these guys positioned for a Raw Tag Team title opportunity going into SummerSlam? Why is it that we have to get the Usos and the Revivals and the Revival for the 8th time? Meanwhile, the Viking Raiders, War Raiders, whatever the hell you want to call them, they're left off of SummerSlam after they have gotten nothing but win after win after win after win. Never been pinned, never been submitted. They've been untouchable. They've been absolutely untouchable. Just goes to show you that WWE can't help themselves but revert back to the same old shit and recycle the same people in the title picture over and over and over again. Mike Kanellis continues to get buried by his own wife. He was a victim of a Ron Simmons damn moment backstage with the Legends. I genuinely don't know what Mike Kanellis did to deserve this shit, because if you watch the guy's work on 205 Live, the guy's actually a very good wrestler. He's put on a lot of good matches with Kendrick, Tozawa, and now he's most likely going to put on another great match, an unsanctioned match with Drake Maverick next week on 205 Live, and if he wins, he gets a Cruiserweight title opportunity. He's involved in a great storyline with Drake Maverick on 205 Live, but on Monday Night Raw, he is the victim of embarrassment. This is really what Vince McMahon sees Mike Kanellis as. It genuinely is frustrating. And then what happened after this was even more frustrating. Gerald Briscoe and Kelly Kelly won the 24/7 title. Kelly Kelly and Jared Briscoe, they won the 24/7 title, but meanwhile, guys like Andrade, Ember, Sammy, Apollo, and many others, many others, they haven't even gotten their first taste of main roster gold. The 24/7 title needs to be abolished. I don't care when it is. ASAP. ASAP, the 24/7 title needs to be gone. I don't care who you are. I don't care what you've done. If you blatantly and openly support this 24/7 title, you do not deserve to be anywhere near wrestling-related material, and I will say it over and over and over and over and over and over again. You do not deserve to be anywhere near wrestling-related material. You do not deserve to even open your mouth to speak other than to eat or drink. Other than to eat or drink, you do not deserve to open your mouth to speak at all. The 24/7 title is an absolute fucking embarrassment, and anyone who supports this bullshit is an absolute fucking embarrassment. The 24/7 title does nothing to elevate anyone. Keep it online in comedy skits. Keep it online on WWE's YouTube channel in comedy skits. Leave it off of television and focus on what is important. Focus on the serious shit. We do not need a 20-year-old rehashed gimmick that says hardcore title. Instead, it says 24/7 title. Hardcore title light. We don't need that. Samoa Joe came out, and he was speaking the truth, saying Raw Reunion is an embarrassment. And Raw Reunion is nothing more than a nostalgic act that everyone falls back on. You know, something along the lines of that. Samoa Joe playing the role of DJ Storms, and he was doing a phenomenal job at it. Roman Reigns comes out. Joe attacks Roman. Joe was attacking Roman. He was beating down Roman all over the ringside area for 5 minutes. He catches one Superman punch. Roman then goats Samoa Joe into a match. Roman defeats Samoa Joe in about 7 minutes. Roman Reigns got beaten down for 95% of this segment slash match. 95% of this segment slash match. For about 20 minutes, he got beaten down. He hits a spear, one spear, in 7 minutes, and defeats Samoa Joe after Samoa Joe had been kicking his ass for the last 20 minutes. Do I even need to say anything else? The Roman Reigns Superman booking is coming back slowly but surely. It's coming back in little subtle doses here and there. I genuinely hope to God. Roman Reigns supposedly isn't booked for SummerSlam. Good. I genuinely don't want to see Roman Reigns on SummerSlam's card. Anything that Roman Reigns does in this new babyface role is a complete waste of time. Miz TV with Seth Rollins. Seth Rollins called Lesnar a Seth Rollins wannabe. I don't know who the fuck is scripting Rollins promos, but they are continuing to ruin Seth Rollins week by week by week. Heyman comes out, cuts a promo from the back, and then Rollins threatens to stomp Heyman's head into the mat. Heyman runs away, and Rollins says, Brock Lesnar is a man, and any man can lose. Generic, boring, recycled, who cares? Who cares? How many times have we seen Seth Rollins cut the same fucking promo in this program with Brock Lesnar? Seth Rollins has fallen so far from grace that it's not even funny. It's not even funny. It is downright embarrassing. It's almost as embarrassing as the 24/7 championship. Seth Rollins has become the 24/7 championship of the Raw roster. He's an embarrassment. Candice Michelle and Alundra Blaze, they won the 24/7 title backstage. And Alundra Blaze was about to do something that I believe the majority of the community would have been completely okay with. But not before the legends, aka Rob Van Dam, Sergeant Slaughter, the Hurricane, and someone else. Who else was it? It was Rob Van Dam, the Hurricane, Sergeant Slaughter, and someone else. I don't know. I don't know who the fuck it was. I know it was someone else, but at the end of the day, these legends, they helped Rey Mysterio defeat Sami Zayn. Who cares? The match lasted 4 minutes and once again embarrassed Sami Zayn. Sami Zayn's only won one singles match since he's been back, and that was against Braun Strowman on Monday Night Raw thanks to the help of Drew McIntyre and Baron Corbin. Sammy, Cody Rhodes has a nice cozy spot for you down in Jacksonville. Alundra Blaze was about to do what many of us would like to do, and that's toss the 24/7 title in the fucking trash. She was about to do the same thing that she did for the WWF Women's Championship back in the day. She was about to. Ted DiBiase came out. Paid Alundra Blaze all this money to buy the 24/7 title. Alundra Blaze was about to save us all, and Ted DiBiase ruined it. Ted, the 24/7 title is just about as worthy as the shit that my dog took on my neighbor's lawn. That's how much it's worth. It is worth nothing. DX and Seth Rollins were in a segment with the OC. In case you don't know what the OC is, it is the new name for Gallows, Anderson, and Styles. By the way, the new t-shirt design and the new Titantron design looks fantastic. I'm loving what they're doing with the OC. Now I only wish that they would book them like legitimate threats in the Raw division, period. DX and Rollins backed off, or you tried to back off the OC. They got chairs, and then the rest of DX and the Clique, minus Billy Gunn, came out. They had Rollins do the DX thing, and that was pretty much it. Waste of time. Ted DiBiase was getting into a limo, and Drake Maverick won the 24/7 championship out of the limo, and then ran off as the rest of the locker room chased off after him. This was the best part about Raw. Mick Foley came out to address his favorite moment. We had the 24/7 championship title chase run through there, only further making this segment worthless until Bray Wyatt showed up. Bray Wyatt, the Fiend, showed up and delivered the mandible claw to Mick Foley. That was a very nice touch of what they did there. I don't know who came up with that, but having Bray Wyatt do the mandible claw to Mick Foley, that's only going to get the Fiend character over in the way that WWE wants the Fiend character to get over. Good shit. Moment of bliss with the most worthless wrestler on the Monday Night Raw roster, Alexa Bliss. Moment of bliss with Becky Lynch. Becky didn't even get a word out before Natalya came out, and then we had a big brawl. We had a big brawl where the referees had to come out and separate Becky Lynch and Natalya, and that was pretty much it. R-Truth then won the 24/7 title and ran off into the limo with Maverick's wife. So Maverick's wife and R-Truth were in the limo. Carmella was outside of the limo, and Maverick was on the floor with his hands on his head, whining and crying like a wounded animal. Braun Strowman defeated a jobber. We're back to jobber matches for Braun Strowman. We had a toast to Raw. Ric Flair came out. Hogan came out and cut a generic Hogan-like promo. Stone Cold came out. He toasted to Raw. And look, the promo was very heartfelt by Stone Cold Steve Austin, and I genuinely enjoy Stone Cold Steve Austin, but at the end of the day, what did it mean? It didn't mean anything. It was just another 15-minute segment that took time away from shit that they could have actually used to build towards SummerSlam. You know, before we move on to the SmackDown Live review, there was a rumor going around. I believe I saw it on Cage Side Seats. Supposedly, the idea for Raw Reunion was originally planned for the very first SmackDown Live on Fox Sports. Yes, you heard me correctly. It was planned for the very first SmackDown Live on Fox Sports. First of all, neither Raw Reunion nor the Legends Reunion for the first episode of SmackDown on Fox should have been planned. Neither of them should have came to be. Fox has come out to WWE and said that they want a genuine sports-like feel. They want a sense of realism. They want the concept of sports entertainment to be completely dead when SmackDown moves to Fox, and they want everyone to recognize SmackDown as a sport. I do not see how doing a Legends Reunion classifies SmackDown Live as a sports-driven product. You're essentially making it a nostalgic soap opera. You shouldn't be putting out all of these legends on the first episode of SmackDown Live on Fox when the first episode of this deal, the very first episode of this deal, you're going to have a Legends Reunion. Meanwhile, you should be putting out matches that would actually make the show feel like a sport. Competitive matches. You should be formulating storylines that have a sense of realism and genuinity. I don't understand, and I'm not comprehending what in WWE's mind would think that putting a Legends Reunion on the first episode of SmackDown on Fox is something sports related. It's not clicking. The dots aren't connecting to me. So I don't know why they would connect for WWE. You want your best at the forefront. A Legends Reunion is not your best. A Legends Reunion is another way of saying desperation. This is nothing more than a cheap ratings grab, and there was a report that came out that this Monday Night Raw was actually the highest rated Monday Night Raw in terms of the ratings, the television ratings, in 11 months. Does it mean anything? No. Because it's not going to continue next week. Raw Reunion. Here's the deal. If they wanted to do this on a random episode of Raw, if they wanted to do this on Labor Day as an unofficial end of summer blowout for WWE, maybe I would have been a little bit more lenient with it, and I would have been a little bit more accepting of it, and I wouldn't have complained about it as much. But the fact of the matter is that you're putting this episode right in the middle of a build towards your second biggest pay-per-view of the year. And we didn't get any build towards any matches at SummerSlam. We got no confirmed matches, and we didn't get any build outside of a 5-minute segment with Natalya and Becky Lynch, which realistically is shaping up to be the best built program going into SummerSlam. Think about that. Natalya and Becky Lynch is shaping up to be the best built program going into SummerSlam. The intensity in their promos, the back and forth, the brawl, I'm liking it. But if you're going to put this in the middle of a build towards SummerSlam, you're essentially wasting a week. This was a wasted episode. This was a wasted 3 hours that WWE could have used to build towards SummerSlam, and instead they decided to use it to try and generate some interest in ratings. Meanwhile, they're going to lose 75% of the audience that they gained this week, next week, on Monday Night Raw. Moving on. SmackDown. SmackDown was completely different. SmackDown actually had a sense of focus on SummerSlam outside of a 60-second women's match, or a 45-second women's match, I believe it was. A 45-second women's match and the main event segment. SmackDown Live was actually a pretty damn good show. I'm not going to lie. Everything on SmackDown Live flowed nicely. Everything on SmackDown Live had a sense of importance. Everything on SmackDown Live had something outside of the two things that I named in the beginning that you could really sink your teeth into. Shane McMahon kicked off the show, and he accepted Kevin Owens' SummerSlam challenge. It's going to be Kevin Owens and Shane, and if KO loses, then Kevin Owens will quit. KO comes out, says that he is not going to quit because he's going to beat the living hell out of Shane McMahon. Shane then makes KO versus Roman Reigns in the main event. He makes himself the special guest ring announcer, he makes Elias the special guest timekeeper, and he makes Drew McIntyre the special guest referee. So there's one segment that we could have completely skipped if we wanted to. Shinsuke Nakamura versus Apollo Crews. This was a damn good match. Apollo Crews, I don't know what this newfound purpose to use Apollo Crews on television is. Probably something to do with All Elite Wrestling. But regardless, keep doing it. Keep doing it. It's always good to see Apollo Crews. Apollo Crews is one of the best that they have to offer. He was put in 2 matches with Andrade. He ended up getting a victory over Andrade. He had a great match with Kushida on NXT. And now he had a good match with Shinsuke Nakamura on SmackDown. Keep using Apollo Crews. Keep using him. I'm liking it. Matches like these are what we need to see. These are the types of matches that is only going to enhance the show. These are the types of matches that people can really sink their teeth into, and these are the types of matches that is going to help WWE when WWE goes to Fox Sports. This is really going to help WWE. Keep doing matches like these. We need to see more of them. They went back and forth. We had Apollo Crews getting an enziguri and an Olympic slam on Shinsuke Nakamura as Shinsuke went for the Kinshasa. Shinsuke Nakamura hit the sliding German. Shinsuke Nakamura, he was caught with a pop-up and freefall drop. Shinsuke Nakamura was caught in a pop-up freefall drop by Apollo. He went for the shooting star press, did Apollo. Shinsuke moved out of the way, hit the Kinshasa, and he defeated Apollo Crews. Good match for what it was. Keep showing Apollo Crews and keep giving us matches like these. Afterwards, Nakamura attacked Apollo Crews and delivered a second Kinshasa. Miz TV with Shawn Michaels. Dolph Ziggler interrupted, and he was doing pretty much the same thing that Samoa Joe was doing, saying that Raw Reunion was an embarrassment, and then he called out Shawn Michaels on his return at Crown Jewel and said that you were an embarrassment, Shawn. Shawn goes, yeah, that may be true, but it's not as embarrassing as giving it your all and still at the end of the day being looked at as a second-rate Shawn Michaels wannabe. That was a great fucking line. That was a nice little jab at Dolph Ziggler. And then The Miz stopped Dolph Ziggler mid-promo and he said, just do something already. You've been coming out here and complaining ever since you returned, saying it should have been you, it should have been you. Here in the WWE, you make it you. So do something. And sure enough, Ziggler did do something as he went to punch Michaels. Instead, he punched Miz, and then he super kicked Michaels. Now, I don't know where this is leading to, because Dave Meltzer did report that despite these segments with Miz and Ziggler, that it's not leading to Miz and Ziggler at SummerSlam. But for what this segment was, this was a spectacular segment. This was a great segment, a sense of realism, a sense of intensity from all three men. I don't know where this is leading to. Dave Meltzer specifically said it's not leading to a match at SummerSlam, but for what this was a spectacular segment. I loved it. The promo game for the people on SmackDown Live, it was on fucking point. On point. Just want to point that out there. Ember Moon versus Charlotte. This went 45 seconds, and I was talking to Chrissy about this, and she said that this might have been a fuck you to the audience for starting the hashtag Give WWE Women a Chance. It was kind of a backlash to the backlash that WWE was getting. Based on what's been going on, I can't disagree with her there. Now, don't get me wrong, by the end of this thing, Ember Moon did look like a beast, and that's what I want for Ember Moon. Ember Moon is my favorite women's wrestler in the WWE. And I want Ember Moon to look legit, and I want Ember Moon to look like a beast. Yes, beating Charlotte in 45 seconds, that legitimizes you as a beast. Hitting the Eclipse on both Charlotte and Bayley afterwards does legitimize you as a beast. But at the end of the day, 45 seconds? 45 seconds for Ember Moon and Charlotte. Now, what they should have done is they should have completely nixed the 15-minute main event segment that they had with Roman, Kevin, Shane, Elias, and McIntyre. They should have given those 15 minutes to Charlotte Flair and Ember Moon, and they should have ended the show with Kofi Kingston's SummerSlam announcement and the match and angle with Samoa Joe and Randy Orton, which actually came after this. Kofi announced his SummerSlam opponent. He issued a SummerSlam challenge to Randy Orton. Kofi brought out Orton, and he said, hey, you and me go way back. You remember a decade ago, November 16th, in Madison Square Garden, 20,000 people chanting my name because I was whooping your ass all over the arena. And Kofi said, that was my moment. That was the moment where I was going to take it to the next level and I was going to become the WWE champion. But you used your influence to hold me back. I love that. And you know, I said it before. The story writes itself. The story writes itself of Randy Orton holding Kofi Kingston back. Back then, it didn't work. Kofi Kingston is now WWE champion, and now he has a match with Orton at SummerSlam. I love that sense of realism. And Orton even said, you think I used my influence? You're damn right I did. Orton came out, just being the prick that he is, he came out saying, you're damn right I did. Because you weren't ready. And you're still not ready. The title reign is a fluke. And you know why? Because you are only WWE champion because of me. Because back before the Elimination Chamber, I injured Ali. And Orton's right. If Ali had never got injured, that was supposed to be Ali. Ali was supposed to be that man in the gauntlet match that would have gone 60 minutes or 45 minutes or however long he went. Ali was supposed to be that man in the Elimination Chamber with Daniel Bryan. Ali was supposed to be that man who was supposed to be fighting Daniel Bryan for the WWE title. But that didn't happen. Orton injured Ali. Kofi took his place. Kofi received all of this overwhelming support, and the WWE decided to push for Kofi Kingston to go and fight Daniel Bryan for the WWE Championship, and Kofi ended up being Daniel Bryan. I mean, this promo, great fucking promo. Both men played their roles perfectly. And Kofi said, well, let's put this to the test. You and me, SummerSlam, for the WWE Championship. And Orton then accepted and said, your title reign's going to come to an end courtesy of the 3 most destructive letters in sports entertainment, RKO. The match with Joe that Kofi had, it was turning into a decent match until Orton interrupted. He went for the RKO on Kofi, but Kofi did not allow him to connect. He hit the RKO on Joe, and then Kofi hit the Trouble in Paradise to Randy Orton. This all leading up to their matchup at SummerSlam. I think it's going to be a great fucking match, and I can see Randy Orton definitely defeating Kofi Kingston, and Randy Orton is going to go into SmackDown Live on Fox Sports as the WWE Champion. Speaking of Samoa Joe, they got Smackville, the network exclusive. There's 3 matches set for Smackville. We have Bayley versus Alexa and Charlotte for the SmackDown Live Women's title, Shinsuke and Balor for the Intercontinental title, and Kofi, Ziggler, and Joe for the WWE title. I think I'll tune into that. I'll tune into that just to see what it's all about. I'm not going to review it. I'm not going to review it because, this show was a project in its own right. Every video that I record is a project because I always end up going for God knows how many fucking minutes. I always end up going for an hour and a half, damn near 2 hours, over 2 hours if you want to talk about a storm stream. Anyway, moving on. Finn Balor, he talked about Bray Wyatt, and he said, I don't know what's going on with Bray Wyatt, but whatever it is, I'm not going to let him keep me down. I'm challenging The Fiend to a match at SummerSlam. And I love what Bray Wyatt did here. The Firefly Funhouse came up on the television screen, and Bray Wyatt was going, yowie, wowie, hey, Finn. And Bray was with Rambling Rabbit and Mercy the Buzzard, and he says that you'll be happy to know that The Fiend accepts your challenge for SummerSlam. He's acting all happy. He's acting the Mr. Rogers character. He's acting like the Mr. Rogers character, acting all happy and dandy, and then slowly he transitioned into that dark demeanor that we're so used to seeing Bray Wyatt in. And then The Fiend came up on the screen, he said, let me in, and that was pretty much that. Fiend and Balor at SummerSlam. I'm looking forward to that. Charlotte was in a 40-second promo, a promo just about as long as her match with Ember Moon, and she basically said that she is demanding a SummerSlam match, and she's going to get an opponent that's far superior to Ember Moon. And I am going to report on who that opponent might be, because multiple reports came out that Charlotte could very well be facing a legend. And I'll talk about that once we get to the news, rumors, and reports section of the LFU. Then in the main event, Owens and Roman ended in a no contest, and Roman and Owens beat down Elias, Drew, and Shane. That was pretty much that. Worthless segment to end SmackDown, and that was pretty much that. Overall, good episode of SmackDown outside of 2 things. 205 Live. 205 Live was an excellent fucking episode. Adam Pearce. This was Adam Pearce's 2nd week. Adam Pearce is doing a fucking spectacular job at picking up where Triple H left off. This episode of 205 Live, if you did not watch this episode of 205 Live, take 50 minutes out of your day and watch this episode. Everything on the show flowed nicely, and everything on the show had to do with importance. Everything on the show had a sense of importance. Everything on the show was phenomenal in its own right. Drake Maverick kicked off the show with the promo backstage, and he gave Kanellis a match with them next week in an unsanctioned match. And if Mike Kanellis wins, he gets a Cruiserweight Championship match. That's taking place next week. I can't wait to see how they go with that match. And this is an authority storyline, an authority angle with a disgruntled employee that's not cringeworthy. Not cringeworthy. I like it. This is what 205 Live is doing that the WWE is not doing. They're putting out angles that aren't cringeworthy and repetitive. The show kicked off with a great fucking tag team match between Kalisto and Gran Metalik of the Lucha House Party and Humberto Carrillo and Raul Mendoza. I've been saying Raul Mendoza should have been on 205 Live a while ago. Here he is on 205 Live, and Raul Mendoza shined bright like a motherfucking diamond on 205 Live. Great match. Great tag team match. Raul Mendoza and Kalisto, they were going back and forth, going flip for flip, arm drag for arm drag, kind of trying to one-up each other. We had a nice sequence here where Kalisto was in the ring, and he hit a handspring enziguri on... Kalisto was in the ring, and he hit a springboard enziguri on Carrillo. And then we had Raul Mendoza hitting a springboard enziguri off of the middle rope. He then hit a corkscrew plancha to the outside. This was towards the end of the match. Humberto Carrillo took out Gran Metalik. He took out Gran Metalik, and he went up to the top rope and hit that twisting splash. The twisting splash on Gran Metalik gave the team of Raul Mendoza and Humberto Carrillo the 1-2-3. Humberto Carrillo, I believe this is his 6th or 7th win in a row. More likely than not, Carrillo should be the man to challenge Drew Gulak at SummerSlam, because Carrillo, he's been on a monumentous roll. He pinned Drew Gulak a few weeks ago. He pinned Drew Gulak, I believe, at the end of May. I don't understand why you wouldn't give Humberto Carrillo a Cruiserweight Championship match after all of these wins. But I do have some news on 205 Live, and a possible new addition to 205 Live. I want to see Raul Mendoza more on 205 Live. Raul Mendoza, great addition to the division. I think he adds a lot. I think his style is fantastic, and I think he is going to definitely pull out some great matches if you want to pair him with some people like Daivari or Nice or Gulak or Kanellis or Tozawa or Kendrick. If you want to pair him with some of these guys, go ahead and do it. I would love to see more of Raul Mendoza. He's a great competitor. Next week we got the Singh brothers versus Tozawa and Kendrick. That is next week. Oni Lorcan defeated Tony Iser. This was just a jobber match. This was to give Oni Lorcan another win and gain Oni Lorcan some more momentum, which I like what they're doing here. They're continuing to build up Oni Lorcan. Oni Lorcan's not ready just yet. He doesn't have enough momentum behind him. Carrillo, more than likely, is the next person. And then in the main event, Isaiah Swerve Scott making his debut. And Isaiah Swerve Scott, he was over. The crowd multiple times throughout this match, they were chanting for Swerve. Swerve made a huge fucking impact on his first night on 205 Live. This was probably a bigger impact than Humberto Carrillo made back when he faced off against Murphy in January. This was a great fucking match, a hard-hitting match with Drew Gulak. These two beat the shit out of each other. The crowd was very much behind Swerve. They really wanted Swerve to win this one. There was a moment where Drew Gulak was on the outside and he had Isaiah Swerve Scott up in a razor's edge position. He tossed Scott back first in a razor's edge position. He razor's edged Isaiah Swerve Scott into the LED post. Back first. Looked brutal. This is where the match really started to pick up. Isaiah Swerve Scott started to gain some more momentum. He had a super kick to Drew Gulak on the outside. Drew Gulak was hanging off the apron. Isaiah ran the apron, did a double stomp to Drew Gulak. And Drew Gulak crashed hard on the outside. He threw Drew Gulak back in the ring. A coup de grace in the ring. He pinned him. Drew Gulak kicked out. Drew Gulak hit a powerbomb, I believe, on Scott, and Scott was able to kick out. We had Isaiah and Drew going slap for slap and kick for kick. Drew ran the ropes. He got caught in a tilt-a-whirl slam, and then Isaiah transitioned it into the armbar. A tilt-a-whirl slam right into the armbar. Beautiful, beautiful transition. Crowd was chanting, "This is awesome." Crowd was chanting 205. We had Drew Gulak getting the Cyclone Crash, that torture rack neckbreaker on Isaiah Swerve Scott, and Drew Gulak defeats Isaiah Swerve Scott. Great fucking match, hard-hitting match. If you haven't watched this match, go out of your way, take 16, 17 minutes out of your day to watch this match. These two tore the house down. Excellent episode of 205 Live. This was probably the best episode of 205 Live since that episode with the Fatal 4-Way with Tozawa, Gulak, Humberto, and Oni. NXT UK. Good episode for what it was. We had a couple of good matches on the show. Show kicked off with Noam Dar defeating Kenny Williams. Good match to kick off the show. Kenny Williams did his trademark springboard back elbows down the home stretch of this match. Noam Dar was able to counter with a Fisherman Brainbuster. Noam Dar locked Kenny Williams in an ankle lock. Kenny Williams was able to get to the ropes, but Noam Dar took his shoe off. He threw his shoe out of the ring, and the ref was distracted by the shoe. Using underhanded tactics, did Noam Dar. He hit a low blow on Kenny Williams and then hit the Nova Roller. And Noam Dar defeats Kenny Williams. Good match to kick off the show. And that was pretty much it. Good match to kick off the show. We then went to a 6-woman tag. The first 6-woman tag in NXT UK history with Ginny, Jazzy Gabbert, and Kaylee Ray versus Piper Niven, Toni Storm, and Xia Brookside. Decent match for what it was. Wasn't anything too special. We had Toni Storm gaining some momentum on her side. She was able to hit a suicide dive, taking out Gabbert and Ginny. We then had Piper Niven do a cannonball, and then Xia Brookside did a huge dive to the outside. Jazzy Gabbert paid dividends as she helped Ginny take out Xia Brookside. Ginny hit the facebuster on Xia Brookside, and Ginny pinned Xia Brookside for the win. And that was that. Dave Mastiff is going to speak out against Joe Coffey and Joe Coffey's challenge next week. Interested to see how that plays out. And then in the main event, it was Walter and Trent Seven. These two men absolutely destroyed each other. Chop for chop, kick for kick, and I loved the underdog babyface role that they had Trent Seven play. For every 10 chops that Trent Seven delivered, it took one chop from Walter to take down Seven. For every 10 kicks that Trent Seven delivered, it took one kick from Walter. Down the home stretch of this match, we had Trent Seven deliver a huge superplex to Walter. Walter did what he did to Tyler Bate and Travis Banks. He hit a powerbomb on the apron, and then he proceeded to hit powerbomb after powerbomb to Trent Seven in the ring, while the other members of Imperium stood and watched the ramp to see if anyone was going to come out, and no one came out. I love that little detail. They just put their hands behind their back and watched to see if anyone was going to come out. No one came out. And about 5 powerbombs later, the ref stopped the match via TKO, and Walter was given the victory. Imperium stood tall. I am loving Imperium. They're shaping up to be the undisputed era of NXT UK. I would not even be surprised if the team of Eichner and Bartel ends up winning the tag team titles at NXT UK TakeOver Cardiff. NXT. This was a very story-driven episode. They did a lot of building towards NXT TakeOver Toronto 2. The show kicked off with a semifinal match between Jordan Myles and Angel Garza. Decent match to kick off the show. This was the semifinal of the Breakout Tournament. Angel Garza was wearing down Jordan Myles for the beginning portion of this match. He was tossing him into the stairs, tossing him into the barricade. He tossed him back into the ring. Jordan Myles started to gain some momentum back, and he went for a springboard, but Angel Garza caught him with a drop kick. We had Jordan Myles do a discus clothesline in the corner, and Jordan Myles did a deadlift bridging German suplex on Angel Garza to win this match. Jordan Myles is going to the finals. Jordan Myles advanced to TakeOver Toronto 2, and Jordan Myles is going to face either Bronson Reed or Cameron Grimes, which takes place next week. After the match, Shane Thorne actually took Mauro Ranallo's headset and said that he is going to break out himself. He called out all the superstars in the tournament, and he basically trashed all of them. And more likely than not, Shane Thorne could very well factor into the Breakout Tournament. You don't know. He could very well end up attacking Jordan Myles or Cameron Grimes, depending on how you look at it. Gargano was seen in the back cutting a Tommaso Ciampa-like promo. He was in an undisclosed location. Gargano chose a street fight as his fall. That's going to be a damn good addition to this finale match between Gargano and Cole. Bianca Belair ended up defeating Xia Li. This was pretty much a 2.5-minute match, getting Bianca Belair another win. Killian Dane cut a promo in the back, and he said he plans to welcome Matt Riddle to his world. So interesting to see where they go with Killian Dane and Matt Riddle. I don't think they're going to be on TakeOver, considering the Goldberg tweets from Matt Riddle. I think that WWE is putting him with Killian Dane as punishment, because more likely than not, Matt Riddle was going to be the next in line to challenge for the NXT Championship. Mia Yim attacked Jessamine Duke backstage in the PC. Mia Yim trying to get the upper hand on Shayna Baszler without actually touching Shayna Baszler. So she's playing mind games with Shayna Baszler, taking out her teammates. And more likely than not, I would not be surprised if this ends up with Mia Yim becoming the NXT Women's Champion, considering that Shayna Baszler, more likely than not, is going to get called up. Fox wants Shayna Baszler. I can definitely see Mia Yim walking out of TakeOver Toronto with the NXT Women's Championship. I can see Mia Yim holding the title till TakeOver War Games 3. Io Shirai wins the title. And then Io Shirai holds the title all the way to WrestleMania weekend in Tampa, where Candice LeRae wins the title. Candice LeRae is going to have that Johnny Gargano-like moment. Velveteen Dream came out and addressed Roderick Strong's victory and said that the moment that the Dream loses the NXT North American title is the day that the Experience dies. Roderick Strong came out and says that he can take the North American title like that. And he's going to be the hand by which the Experience dies. Before they could say anything else, out of nowhere, Pete Dunne comes out, and a huge reaction is heard throughout Full Sail. Everyone stood up. It was like people were getting ready to do the wave. You could physically see everyone stand up and scream as Pete Dunne came out. Pete Dunne came out, snapped Roderick Strong's fingers, and stared down the Velveteen Dream. We were then taken to the backstage area where Roderick Strong went to William Regal, and William Regal said, "I've arranged a deal with the UK general manager, Johnny Saint. Pete Dunne's going to be part of NXT for a little while." Great move. Great move by keeping Dunne in NXT. They're going to need some people down in NXT, considering that, A, there's going to be a mass exodus of NXT. Most likely the Street Profits, Velveteen, Shayna, and possibly Gargano are all going up to the main roster, with the draft supposedly rumored after SummerSlam. So Pete Dunne in NXT, it's going to add a lot. I also think that if Shayna's going up, I think you should add Toni Storm to the NXT women's division as well. Just as a temporary stand, like a standing position. Just as someone who has name value there. Considering that when she loses, most likely she's going to lose the NXT Women's Championship, the NXT UK Women's Championship to Kaylee Ray. Shayna Baszler is going to leave. They're going to need someone with a lot of name value before they build up a couple of other people, because they still have to build up Casey Catanzaro. They still have to build up Lacey Lane, Chelsea Green, Vanessa Bourne, and Aaliyah, among others. So, I actually like the move of Pete Dunne staying down in NXT for a little while. He makes a triple threat match for NXT TakeOver Toronto 2. Dunne, Strong, and Velveteen. I don't want to say Match of the Year candidate, but Match of the Year candidate. Just want to point that out there. Next week, we got Pete Dunne versus Roderick Strong. That's definitely going to be a great match. Io Shirai versus Casey Catanzaro ended in a DQ when Candice LeRae came out and attacked Io Shirai. Candice LeRae sent Io Shirai packing. More likely than not, this is going to end in a match at TakeOver Toronto 2. If Triple H really wants to load up TakeOver Toronto, I would say putting this match on the show would do the deed at making the show even bigger than it already is. Adam Cole, he picked a normal match, a standard one-on-one wrestling match. The same thing that he beat Johnny Gargano in at TakeOver 25. Okay, go for it. I'm down with it. Adam Cole keeping it classic. Most likely Adam Cole will have the first fall of the normal match. Then we're going to get Gargano's street fight. The third fall, there's only one way to end this. And I believe that they're going to a third fall, and more likely than not, I think William Regal is going to announce it sometime before TakeOver. They're going to make history. This is my call, my speculation. They're going to end it inside Hell in a Cell. And ladies and gentlemen, that right there is a 3 stages of Hell match. You want something to look forward to SummerSlam weekend? You want to know what's going to make the entire month of August? 4 words. 3 stages of Hell. That's all. Then the main event, we had a decent match between Damian Priest and Keith Lee. Keith Lee and Damian Priest, they were going back and forth, trading strike for strike. The Grizzly Chop, the kicks, the forearms. Keith Lee was sent to the outside. Damian Priest, he did a tope con hero, and he was caught. Now, Damian Priest, keep in mind, this guy is 6'7". He did a tope con hero, and Keith Lee caught this motherfucker in a powerbomb position. And Keith Lee, you could see the visible anger on his face. He caught this guy in a powerbomb position. He was going for a powerbomb, and Damian Priest wriggled out of it. Damian Priest sent Keith Lee into the stairs. We had Damian Priest running away from Keith Lee. He used the ref, and he hit the Cyclone kick on Keith Lee, the Cyclone roundhouse kick, and then he hit the rolling cutter that he calls the Reckoning. And Keith Lee was defeated by Damian Priest. Decent match to end NXT. Again, this was very much a storyline-driven episode, but for what it was, great episode, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing what they do going into NXT TakeOver Toronto 2. Now, onto the news, rumors, and reports. I got a lot to talk about. My first report concerns cage side seats, and they reported that there's been a rumor circulating that Daniel Bryan could very well be moved to 205 Live, which is why I'm wearing the shirt. Now, this could very well have been what his career-altering announcement's all about. That's why it keeps on getting teased. And it's certainly an interesting decision. Now, put it this way. We all know that Daniel Bryan is above 205 Live. Hell, realistically, everyone on 205 Live is above 205 Live. Those guys on 205 Live should be in the main event scene or the mid-card scene competing against guys like Rey Mysterio, Ricochet, Styles, Rollins, Apollo, Nakamura, Balor, many others. We already know this. But considering that Daniel Bryan, he's already done it all. And he's already established. He's Money in the Bank winner, multiple-time world champion, IC champion, US champion, tag team champion, main eventer of WrestleMania. He's done it all. So, an established guy like that going to 205 Live, and the rumor is that they want to generate some interest and gain better ratings for the product. Okay, I can appreciate that. And I genuinely don't mind that. I've always said that adding more men to the roster is a good decision. It's like they did with Raul Mendoza and Isaiah Swerve Scott. Now you have Daniel Bryan possibly being added to the roster, and more likely than not, he could very well end up facing off against Drew Gulak at SummerSlam for the Cruiserweight title. It could get the Cruiserweights more notoriety, could get the Cruiserweights on the main show. Because you're not going to put Daniel Bryan on the pre-show. I mean, they did it at Money in the Bank, but that was only because of the fact that Daniel Bryan came back quicker than they expected, so they decided to put him on the pre-show right then and there. But how much improvement would this really make? Just adding Daniel Bryan to generate some type of generate some type of interest in 205 Live. I get that. And yes, adding more men to the roster, especially one of the caliber of Daniel Bryan, that would definitely help the roster. But what would it do in the long run? It wouldn't really do much. How long before Daniel Bryan's aura on 205 Live wears out? How much longer before the audience that was watching 205 Live when Daniel Bryan first debuted, should he debut, how long before that audience wears out? Here's what they should do. There's been a lot of talk about WWE moving 205 Live to Full Sail. A lot of fans have pitched that idea. I wouldn't mind that, but if you're not going to move it to Full Sail, then at least move it to before SmackDown. Before SmackDown Live is the best possible decision right now, because it would definitely get more eyes on the product. Before SmackDown Live, you won't run the risk of the people leaving the arena before the show's even over. And also, on top of that, on top of moving 205 Live before SmackDown Live, you promote it. You promote it as you did the Evolve event. 205 Live has essentially become another NXT, in a sense. They have acted as if NXT and 205 Live don't even exist, except for one little subtle promotion here and there on Raw and SmackDown the week before an NXT TakeOver event. And then when it comes to 205 Live, the only time that the main roster acknowledges 205 Live is if they have a Cruiserweight title match on the pay-per-views. That's the only time that they ever acknowledge 205 Live. They don't promote it. They don't hype it up. They act like it doesn't even exist except when the pay-per-views come around. This is what WWE needs to focus on. They need to focus on promoting the show a lot more and moving it before SmackDown Live. That way you'll have more eyes on the product. Put it on the network before SmackDown Live. That way more people in the arena will see. More people on the network would probably find it more convenient to watch it at 7 p.m. as opposed to 10 p.m. after they watch the two-hour episode of SmackDown. And then you add more people with the name value of Daniel Bryan. You add people like Raul and Bryan and Mark Andrews, people like that. Slowly but surely, you'll start to see an increase in ratings and a little bit of progression. But just adding people on the roster is not going to fix it. It's not going to fix the problem in the long run. You need to actually book the show, and promote the show with a sense of importance. Move it before SmackDown Live to get more eyes on the product, and start promoting it like you did the Evolve event. Promote it each and every single week. Not just on the network, promote it on live television. Go watch 205 Live on the network. The only promotion that you see from 205 Live is that little logo in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen after the trademark, the copyright trademark thing comes up for SmackDown, and it says 205 Live up next on the network. That's it. Why not have the announcers say it? So again, I don't necessarily mind Bryan on 205 Live. It makes for some interesting moments. Probably going to have a match with Gulak at SummerSlam. You'll probably get some matches out of Oni, out of Nice, out of Humberto. I get it. But at the end of the day, how much is it going to do in the long run? It's not really going to do much because Bryan's specialness could very well wear off after a month. So I don't mind it, but you're going to have to do more than just adding people on the show to generate interest in the product. Moving on. This actually came from multiple sources. Per Ryan Satin of Pro Wrestling Sheet, Trish Stratus is set to wrestle at SummerSlam. Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful and John Pollock of Post Wrestling both reported that Charlotte is currently scheduled and set to wrestle Trish at the biggest party of the summer. This is a great decision. I am all for this. You know why? It essentially is an all-around great decision because, number one, it gives you a dream match that many of people have been interested in. It gives us something new. It gives us something fresh. We've never seen Trish Stratus versus Charlotte Flair. It gives us a big money match for SummerSlam to generate a sense of interest. It could very well enhance the SummerSlam pay-per-view as a whole, and it keeps Charlotte out of the women's title picture. I've said this before. Charlotte does not need to be in the women's title picture. I was fearful that they were going to add Charlotte into the SmackDown Live women's title picture with Bayley and Ember. But if they're going to go ahead with Trish Stratus, it's going to keep Charlotte out of the title picture. Bayley and Ember can do their thing. And Charlotte going to get a win over Trish Stratus. Charlotte and Trish Stratus, interesting dream match. Trish Stratus, she can still go. I've seen her wrestle. Now, even though it was a generic match, Trish Stratus can still go. I genuinely don't mind this match at all. I think this is a great decision all around. I'm genuinely looking forward to seeing if they do schedule this match and how they build towards this match, other than the fact that it's just a dream match. But regardless, I like this decision. Go ahead with it. Go ahead. My next report comes from Dave Meltzer. I actually got a couple reports from Meltzer himself. My first report from Meltzer of the Wrestling Observer newsletter has to do with the ticket sales for Raw and SmackDown TV tapings in Madison Square Garden. Dave Meltzer reported that the ticket sales for Raw and SmackDown TV tapings in Madison Square Garden are not doing well whatsoever. He described them as, and I quote, surprisingly stunning and exceedingly disappointing. Does this surprise me? Or genuinely, does this surprise anyone? Does this surprise anyone outside of the people employed in the WWE? Certainly doesn't surprise me. I would assume it wouldn't surprise you. What can I say that I haven't said pertaining to an issue like this? SmackDown Live and Raw have been terrible. Raw, we haven't had a good episode of Raw in years. We got the first decent episode of SmackDown Live since before WrestleMania. Of course the ticket sales are going to be exceedingly disappointing. Because the WWE product as a whole, the main roster product as a whole, sucks. The product is genuinely and truthfully bad. What do you expect? I genuinely don't understand what would WWE expect from this? What, just because it's Madison Square Garden? Just because they're the WWE that they're automatically going to sell out and get great ticket sales right out of the gate? There's a reason why Double or Nothing sold out in 5 minutes. There's a reason why All Out sold out in 15 minutes. There's a reason. Because the quality of the shows that All Elite Wrestling has been putting on has been spectacular. Hasn't been perfect, but it's been damn good for what they've been giving us. The feel and the freshness of All Elite Wrestling is something that we have desperately wanted for a while now. The overall feel of Raw and SmackDown has gone down in quality year by year. 2013 was the last good year for WWE. Ever since then, little by little, the WWE has continued to sink and sink and sink and sink and sink and sink into the proverbial black hole. WWE has no one to blame but themselves for these shitty ticket sales. Why? Because their product is not good. And when a product is not good, people are not going to go out of their way to spend their money to go to the event and watch what they have to serve up. They can't even sell out a regular episode of Raw or SmackDown. Raw Reunion was probably the first episode of Monday Night Raw that was jam-packed in a while. For the most part, I've been seeing a lot of photos concerning Raw and SmackDown, especially even pay-per-views. Even pay-per-views with Stomping Grounds, Extreme Rules. There were empty seats up in the balconies. There was a complete half of the arena tarped off for Stomping Grounds. Raw and SmackDown on the non-televised side have had loads and loads of empty seats. WWE has no one to blame but themselves. The more they continue to put out these terrible shows, the less people are going to watch. And when AEW goes to Wednesday nights on TNT from 8 to 10, prime time, when AEW continues to put on the shows that they've been putting on, because their level of consistency has been very good. They've been putting on consistently great wrestling shows. If they keep on doing that, and if they develop a big enough fan base, and if the WWE continues to put on shit shows like this, WWE is only going to continue to see a decrease in ratings, a decrease in ticket sales. People are going to stop watching. People are going to stop spending their money on the WWE. The WWE is going to lose revenue, while AEW is only going to gain a fan base and gain more revenue as we know it. If AEW starts getting into the 1 million and the 2 million week by week, just like WWE, they're going to be considered full-blown competition. Right now, AEW is already competition in WWE. WWE clearly sees AEW as competition, and I'm going to talk about that more once we get to the final report, because the final report is something that I've really wanted to talk about. The final report is a report that I have that is clear-cut bullshit. But for the most part, the reason why these ticket sales are exceedingly disappointing is because of WWE themselves. And Vince McMahon more than likely will find some type of excuse. Vince McMahon will more than likely come up with some bullshit answer and blame it on someone else, anyone but himself. He'll blame it on everyone but himself. Why? Because that's what Vince McMahon does. Moving on to another report from Dave Meltzer. Dave Meltzer also reported that Eric Bischoff will not be involved in any creative decisions on SmackDown Live whatsoever. He states, and I quote, "Right now, there's no story, parentheses, about Eric Bischoff in creative, close the parentheses, you know. He will interface help, build the brand, you know, I guess maybe ideas for the brand, but not necessarily creative ideas for the brand, you know, work with Fox, things like that. The people in creative have basically been told that he's not running creative on the brand, and he might not even have anything to do with creative." Now, does this surprise me? No, it doesn't. But here's what I don't understand. WWE knows, you know for a fact that they know what is wrong with the product. Why wouldn't you want someone, anyone, that has a sense of hope, anyone that you have a sense of hope in, that the people have a sense of hope in, why wouldn't you want help to improve your product? Or is WWE really that stubborn? You know, Eric Bischoff is said right here to have no say in anything creative on SmackDown Live. Just because we had a good episode on SmackDown Live this week doesn't mean that Eric Bischoff is running it. Just because we had a good episode of SmackDown Live this week doesn't mean we all get to hold hands and sing Kumbaya. Let them get on a hot streak first of 3 or 4 good shows. Then we can more likely see that change is coming. And we can more likely say that change is coming. But if Eric Bischoff is not having anything to do with creative, who's to say that Paul Heyman has anything to do with creative? Who's to say that Paul Heyman has anything to do with what goes on backstage at all? Who's to say that Paul Heyman is just doing what he's told and being an on-screen character? Paul Heyman literally, blatantly came out and said on Raw after Extreme Rules, "I have all the stroke around here now." You can't get any more blatant and obvious than that. Who's to say that Paul Heyman is even running Monday Night Raw if Eric Bischoff doesn't even have any creative say in SmackDown? Eric Bischoff was even on Monday Night Raw and said, "Hey, you can always come over to SmackDown." Eric Bischoff is said to only be working with Fox and keeping the relationship between WWE and Fox Sports on good terms. Why wouldn't you want to have creative ideas from a guy who was a very creative mind and knows, more likely than not, he knows what the people want. Him and Paul Heyman know what the people want. You take a look at what happened with Raw these past 2 weeks. Raw Reunion was terrible and the Raw after Extreme Rules was terrible. And those 2 episodes were being run by Paul Heyman. Who's to say that Paul Heyman is even running those shows? Now, with this report coming out, who's to say that WWE didn't merely do what they did with Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff to give the fans a false sense of hope? Who's to say that WWE didn't spew out bullshit? Who's to say WWE didn't put this out as a sense of, what's the word that I'm looking for? A sense of desperation. Who's to say that WWE did not do this just to draw fans in, just to like dangle a piece of meat over the fans and draw them into a false sense of hope and trap them in their own private Idaho and try and brainwash these fans that change is coming? How much longer before these fans realize that there's no change coming and they'll lose the fans and Vince McMahon has to try and find another way to generate some interest? Again, I've said this before, I genuinely don't know. I'm literally out of words. I don't know what I can say that I haven't already said about this. WWE, based on this report, blatantly put out the tweet that Paul Heyman and Eric Bischoff are executive directors mainly to give the fans a false sense of hope. A false sense of hope that things will change, but in reality, nothing's going to change. It's like what I said on the rewind for Extreme Rules. It doesn't matter what happens. As long as there is still air in the lungs of Vince McMahon, as long as there is still blood pumping through his veins, as long as that man's heart still has a beat, there is going to be no long-term change. There's going to be no long-term change. More likely than not, SmackDown could very well go back to the same shit that we've seen during the aftermath of WrestleMania. We're going to get the same tired bullshit that we've been seeing on SmackDown for God knows how long now. For the last few months. This decent episode of SmackDown Live was more than likely a fluke. Until the Angel of Death comes down and claims Vince McMahon's soul, we are not going to get any long-term change. Both Raws, ever since after Extreme Rules, have sucked. And if you think there's anything different, then you're completely fucking blinded. You are a dumb fuck if you think that there has been any change, long-term change, and any change in general as far as Monday Night Raw goes. SmackDown Live, we saw a sense of focus on SummerSlam, which made for a good show. But at the end of the day, how long is that going to continue? I genuinely don't know what else you want me to say about this whole Eric Bischoff thing. More likely than not, this also means that Paul Heyman is not running Monday Night Raw. My next report comes from Cage Side Seats. This has to do with a possible title match at SummerSlam. Cage Side Seats reported that The New Day versus Samoa Joe and Elias is being rumored for SummerSlam. Why? That's a terrible fucking idea. Samoa Joe and Elias, how does that make any sense? What does Samoa Joe and Elias have to do with one another? What does Samoa Joe and Elias have to do with The New Day? Outside of Samoa Joe and Kofi Kingston, what does Samoa Joe have to do with Xavier Woods and Big E? What does Elias have to do with Xavier Woods and Big E and Kofi Kingston? Samoa Joe, like Kofi Kingston did, Samoa Joe is a great white shark. He's a loner. Samoa Joe is supposed to be built up and looked at as a beast that works alone. A beast that hunts alone, and a beast that does his work alone, by himself, without any help. Elias is a tired act. Elias is a boring, recycled act that has completely died a miserable death after the summer of 2018. After the summer of 2018, Elias, he's dead. Elias died. The aura that is Elias and the specialness that is Elias is no more. Elias comes out, he does the same thing each and every single week with his guitar. He does the same exact moves in his matches. There's nothing special about Elias. Pairing Elias with Samoa Joe will only bring Samoa Joe down. more than he's already been brought down, because WWE has made Samoa Joe out to be the biggest loser in all of WWE in the last 2 years. Pairing him with Elias in a title match with the New Day, only for the New Day to lose, or no, only for the New Day to win, and Samoa Joe and Elias to lose, what good is that going to do? Really, what good is that going to do? Samoa Joe, more than likely, should go into a match with Aleister Black at SummerSlam. Why wouldn't you want to see that? Samoa Joe and Aleister Black? That sounds like a damn good, that sounds like a world title match to me. You're going to put that on the undercard of SummerSlam to give Samoa Joe a marquee match and give Aleister Black a match where Aleister Black can shine, and Aleister Black getting a victory over a guy like Samoa Joe? Aleister Black continuing his momentum? Why wouldn't you want that? Why do we need Elias on SummerSlam? Elias has no value anymore. Elias has no value anymore. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're a fan of him. I don't care if you're the biggest Elias mark walking the face of the planet. Elias doesn't have any value anymore. He does the same thing over and over. He's part of this elite class. He's part of the elite class that bring the show down. Elias is in the class with Baron Corbin, Nia Jax, Alexa Bliss, the Bellas, the Iconics, Roman, Strowman, Lashley, and many more. The New Day should go into SummerSlam to face off against Heavy Machinery. New Day should have never won the titles to begin with. If Bryan and Rowan were going to lose those titles, they should have lost the titles to Heavy Machinery at Extreme Rules. The New Day are tag team champions now. Unnecessarily, might I add. They don't need to be tag team champions. It was probably one of the dumbest decisions of Extreme Rules to put the titles back on the New Day. If you're going to have a tag team title match at SummerSlam, it should be Heavy Machinery. Heavy Machinery should beat the New Day. New Day should be transitional champions. Heavy Machinery should beat the New Day. And Heavy Machinery should walk out of SummerSlam with the tag team titles. Why wouldn't you want that moment? If you want to make SummerSlam a big event, you want to make SummerSlam memorable. You can't have SummerSlam be the weakest event of all the events going on in August. August, there's like 5 or 6 events going on. You got the G1 Climax, you got New Japan Royal Quest, you got 2 takeovers, you got All Out, and then you got SummerSlam. You do not want SummerSlam to be the weakest event. Putting Samoa Joe and Aleister Black on there, having Aleister Black walk out victorious, and then having Heavy Machinery win the tag team titles, it would do wonders. It would genuinely do wonders for the event as a whole. It would really make the event feel important and special. I say this all the time. The wrestling on the show could be the best wrestling that you've ever seen, but the booking always makes or breaks the show. I do not want to see this whatsoever, and I hope to God that this is not the case. Heavy Machinery is the correct team to face off against the New Day at SummerSlam. Elias and Samoa Joe, no sense whatsoever. Now we've come to the moment that a lot of you have been waiting for. Speaking of New Japan Pro Wrestling Royal Quest, on August 31st, apparently Sean Ross Sapp, and I was talking to Chrissy, we were talking about UK TakeOver, and we were talking about All Out. She got word from Sean Ross Sapp that he reported that NXT UK TakeOver Cardiff was set on August 31st to compete with New Japan Pro Wrestling's Royal Quest on that day. There's 3 events going on that day. There's Royal Quest for New Japan, there's NXT UK TakeOver Cardiff, and then there's AEW's All Out. Sean Ross Sapp reported that TakeOver was set to compete with the New Japan Pro Wrestling show. I want you guys to think about that for a minute. It was set to compete with the New Japan Pro Wrestling show. I want to ask you guys a question to start off this discussion about this specific report. Has WWE ever considered New Japan Pro Wrestling as a threat? Has New Japan Pro Wrestling ever been a threat to WWE? No. No, they haven't. No and no. No, WWE has never considered New Japan Pro Wrestling a threat, and no, WWE has never seen New Japan Pro Wrestling, or New Japan Pro Wrestling has never been seen as a threat to WWE at all, by anyone. New Japan Pro Wrestling doesn't have a weekly television program here in the United States. They don't even have that much of a dent in the Western market. I watched the G1 Climax, the one with Kota Ibushi and Kenta, and then Tanahashi and Okada in the main event. Tyson Arnold directed me to a site where I could watch the G1 Climax, and I watched it that one night. And I saw Kenta defeat Kota Ibushi and Okada defeat Tanahashi. In the American Airlines Arena, I believe it was. The arena, 50% of the arena was empty. You could visibly see all around the arena. The upper portion of the arena was empty. It was like something at a stomping grounds. New Japan Pro Wrestling doesn't even have a dent in the Western market. The WWE hasn't even acknowledged New Japan Pro Wrestling. Even when they were at their peak. Realistically, New Japan Pro Wrestling was at their peak a few years ago. A few years ago, you had guys like Okada, the Young Bucks were in the Bullet Club, Cody was in the Bullet Club, you had Jericho facing off against Kenny and Naito, you had the Young Bucks and Cody Rhodes doing their thing in the Bullet Club, you had Okada and Kenny Omega putting on classic after classic after classic, Cody Rhodes facing off against Juice Robinson. That was when New Japan was at its peak. That was when New Japan Pro Wrestling, and New Japan Pro Wrestling is still great now, but they are in no way, shape, or form at their peak. They have great wrestling, but they're not the most talked about thing in the world. New Japan Pro Wrestling was more talked about a few years ago, mainly because they had all of those guys. They had Jericho, Kenny, Cody, and the Bucks. And then all of them, they left. They left to go start All Elite Wrestling. And New Japan Pro Wrestling, while they still had great wrestling, at the end of the day, they're not that well known. And they're not really that much talked about because AEW is the hottest thing right now. WWE never batted an eyelash over New Japan Pro Wrestling back then when they were at their peak. They acted like New Japan Pro Wrestling didn't even exist. So why all of a sudden, now they care about New Japan Pro Wrestling? Now, after all these years, after New Japan Pro Wrestling already had its peak, now they care about New Japan Pro Wrestling? Now, I call bullshit. Sean Ross Sapp, he's a good guy, but now I don't want to start any conspiracy theories here. I don't want to be the master of conspiracies here, but I have a feeling that this is just me in the back of my mind. I know for a fact that Sean Ross Sapp is an honest guy. I know for a fact Sean Ross Sapp is an honest guy, and I know for a fact that Sean Ross Sapp would not spew any bullshit. There's no way that Sean Ross Sapp, a guy like him, who's had a great reputation, there's no way a guy like him would spew bullshit. Sean Ross Sapp's a good guy. I don't want to be the master of conspiracies here, but something is telling me that Sean Ross Sapp is being lied to. Something is telling me that the sources that Sean Ross Sapp has are lying to him. WWE might have seeked out those sources. They probably know of the sources that Sean Ross Sapp has and Fightful has, and WWE is paying those sources to spew bullshit to Sean Ross Sapp. And Sean Ross Sapp is reporting it, thinking it's true. Now, it could very well not be true at all, but based on everything that's been going on, there is no evidence whatsoever as to why WWE would schedule TakeOver Cardiff on August 31st to compete with the New Japan Pro Wrestling show. There's no evidence. There's no connections. There's nothing going on in New Japan Pro Wrestling right now that would make WWE put NXT UK TakeOver Cardiff on the same day as a New Japan Pro Wrestling event and All Out to compete with the New Japan Pro Wrestling event. The New Japan Pro Wrestling event, more than likely, will have the least amount of eyes. And, that's sad in a way. It'll still have eyes on it, and it'll still be popular. But at the end of the day, New Japan does not pose a threat to WWE whatsoever. They never have. WWE never cared about New Japan. And there's no reason why WWE would be competing with New Japan. Meanwhile, you take a look at AEW, they have more money than New Japan, they have more buzz around them than New Japan, they have a huge dent in the Western market, they have a weekly television show coming up on August 31st. And based on all the evidence that has happened over the course of the last 7 to 8 months, all the evidence points to the fact that WWE put NXT UK TakeOver Cardiff on August 31st because of All Elite Wrestling's All Out. Look at what they've been doing with certain superstars. They have been booking certain superstars, the likes of Samoa Joe, Bayley, Asuka, Andrade, Ricochet, The Revival, The Usos, Hawkins and Ryder. They've been booking these guys in major title programs to try and keep them happy. To try and keep them happy so they won't do a complete 180 and go to All Elite Wrestling when their contracts are up. They've been handing out 5-year contracts like candy on Halloween, trying to lock down everyone. They blatantly put Evolve on the same day as Fight for the Fallen. And don't give me the bullshit. I don't want to hear any bullshit from anyone saying that Evolve was not set on that day to compete with Fight for the Fallen. All Elite Wrestling had all of their events scheduled by February. They had all 4 of those events. Double or Nothing, Fyter Fest, Fight for the Fallen, and All Out. All of those events were set by February. WWE had a partnership with Evolve. They've had a partnership with Evolve forever. They announced that the Evolve 131 10th anniversary special was taking place on July 13th. They announced that the day after WrestleMania. Fight for the Fallen was set by February. They announced the Evolve event taking place on July 13th in April. You know for a fact, and I don't want to hear any bullshit, you know for a fact that due to WWE's partnership with Evolve, WWE had to have some say. They've had to have some say in when they were scheduling the Evolve 131 special, because they wanted to broadcast it on the network same time during Fight for the Fallen. Same thing with TakeOver Cardiff. All Out was planned by February, March. TakeOver Cardiff was being planned in April and May, and they didn't announce it until June 1st. They didn't announce it until June 1st. On August 31st. Same day as All Out, before All Out even takes place. To try and take the buzz away from All Out. We even got Smackville going on tomorrow night at 9 p.m., and there was a report going around that the reason why they're doing this network special is because they're doing more network specials in the future. Vince McMahon said, we're going to take it to them like they're taking it to us. Rollins even came out and said that Moxley's taking food off of our dinner table. Even though that's not true whatsoever, but even Rollins is coming out and saying that AEW is competition. So based on all of this evidence, do you really think that WWE put the TakeOver Cardiff event on August 31st because of the New Japan Pro Wrestling show? What does New Japan have to do with WWE? What threat do they pose? They pose no threat whatsoever. Sean Ross Sapp is the only person reporting this, number one. He is the only person that I've seen that has reported this, number one. And number two, there's no evidence. There's no evidence. You can look up and down what has happened backstage. You can look up and down the decisions that WWE has made. You can look up and down the wrestling world for the last 8 months, and there is absolutely zero evidence why WWE would put the UK TakeOver Cardiff event on August 31st to combat Royal Quest for New Japan Pro Wrestling. There's no evidence. Meanwhile, you take a look at the television deals for All Elite Wrestling. You take a look at the Evolve special being set on the same day as Fight for the Fallen. You take a look at Smackville. You take a look at WWE handing out 5-year contracts like they're candy. You take a look at guys like Balor, guys like Nakamura, guys like Samoa Joe and Bayley and The Revival getting all these title pushes despite having nothing in 2018. You see all these title pushes for superstars that we would have never ever seen in 2018. But all of a sudden, WWE announced, or WWE saw the announcement of All Elite Wrestling, and now it's coincidental that they're getting these title pushes. If you believe that WWE is trying to combat New Japan Pro Wrestling, meanwhile all of this evidence points in a different direction, you are delusional as can be. You are the most delusional person walking the face of the planet. There is no fucking way that this report is true. No fucking way. Based on all the evidence, what does WWE have to do with New Japan? And what does New Japan have to do with WWE? New Japan Pro Wrestling hasn't taken any shots at WWE, and WWE hasn't taken any shots at New Japan. Meanwhile, AEW and WWE have been taking subtle shots at each other for the past fucking 3 months. I genuinely don't know what else you want me to tell you. I don't know what else you want me to tell you. I have a feeling Sean Ross Sapp is being lied to by whatever source that is telling him this report. Sean Ross Sapp, I know for a fact he wouldn't report any bullshit and he wouldn't clickbait. But based on the evidence, I have a feeling that WWE is paying the source that Sean Ross Sapp has to spew bullshit because WWE does not want to come out and blatantly say that AEW is competition. The WWE management, I'm not including Seth Rollins, but the WWE management have come out and said that AEW is not competition. They haven't even acknowledged AEW as competition. But their actions speak louder than words. Their actions speak to the audience as saying, we are scheduling these events, we are scheduling TakeOver Cardiff on August 31st to compete with All Out. That's pretty much it. Pretty much it. I don't know what you want me to tell you. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps up this edition of LFU. I'd like to thank each and every single one of you who tuned into the show. Do not forget, later on today, it is the 4th Thunderscope live stream. JV Thunder is going to be playing none other than Black Diamond by Kiss. You are not going to want to miss a moment of it. It's going to be damn good. Follow me on Instagram at TheDJStorms. Follow me on Twitter at Man of Infamy. I want you guys to go and hit that thumbs up if you haven't already done so. We're going to try and get this video to 15 thumbs up. Leave a comment down below. What are your thoughts on the build towards SummerSlam, and what are your thoughts on the recent reports going around? I also want you to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so. We are so close to 1,300, and I would really like to get to 1,300 before the end of the month. I also want you to hit that notifications bell with a huge coup de grace. That way you will know whenever I pop up on YouTube, because whenever I pop up on YouTube, it is the best time to be on YouTube. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm the one and only DJ Storms. I hope you have a great weekend. I will see you later tonight.